Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Trying to predict the costs associated with a geopolitical earthquake like an invasion or war is near impossible. There are simply too many factors to consider. Nevertheless, sometimes making such estimates can be a useful thought experiment, especially for policymakers and investors who need to be considering such things. This week, Bloomberg Economics published a long report which sought to do just this for a mainland attack on Taiwan, concluding that such a scenario would be devastating for the global economy, dwarfing the fallout from the Ukraine war, the pandemic, and the global financial crisis, causing, at a conservative estimate, over $10 trillion in damage in the first year alone, 10% of global GDP. On the eve of Taiwan's presidential election this week, a potential flashpoint, we start today's video by examining some of this report and its projections. Like we just said, these could be wildly inaccurate, but it's still useful to reflect on nevertheless. We quote selected excerpts from the piece directly, supplemented with some light commentary. Few put a high probability on an immediate Chinese invasion. Still, the outbreak of war in Ukraine and Gaza are reminders of how long simmering tensions can erupt into conflict. National security experts in the Pentagon, think tanks in the US and Japan, and global consulting firms are gaming out scenarios from a Chinese maritime quarantine of Taiwan to the seizure of Taiwan's outlying islands and a full-scale Chinese invasion. Jude Blanchett, a China expert at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, says interest in a Taiwan crisis from multinational firms he advises has exploded since Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine. The subject comes up 95% of conversations, he says. Bloomberg Economics has modeled 2 scenarios, a Chinese invasion drawing the US into a local conflict and a blockade cutting Taiwan off from trade with the rest of the world. A suite of models is used to estimate the impact on GDP, taking account of the blow to semiconductor supply, disruption to shipping in the region, trade sanctions and tariffs, and the impact on financial markets. In the case of a war, Taiwan's economy would be decimated. Based on comparable recent conflicts, Bloomberg Economics estimates a 40% blow to GDP. A population and industrial base concentrated on the coast would add to the human and economic cost. With relations a major trade partner turned off and no access to advanced semiconductors, China's GDP would suffer a 16.7% blow. For the US, further from the center of the action but still with a lot at stake through the reliance of Apple on the Asian electronic supply chain, for example, GDP would be down 6.7%. For the world as a whole, GDP would be down 10.2%, with South Korea, Japan, and other East Asian economies most impacted. A key assumption in the scenario is that the US would succeed in enlisting allies in concerted and severe economic sanctions against China. Bloomberg Economics also modeled what a year-long blockade of Taiwan by mainland China would mean for the global economy. For Taiwan, a small open economy that has thrived through trade, GDP in the first year would be down 12.2%. For China, the US, and the world as a whole, GDP in the first year would be down 8.9%, 3.3%, and 5% respectively. The reason for the smaller impact relative to the war scenario is that while the global economy still loses access to all of Taiwan's chips, other shocks, including tariffs between the US and its allies in China and disruption to Asian shipping and financial market fallout, are scaled down. Here ends the quoting of the report. This Saturday is the Taiwanese election, and the world will be watching. There was a scare in Taiwan this week caused by an alert about a satellite launch that translated the Chinese word for satellite to the English word missile. The alert was sent to mobile phones across the island, and the error was quickly corrected by Taiwanese officials. In the rush of the moment, officials said they did not double-check the translation before the emergency messages were sent. According to state media, the satellite launch on Tuesday was for a, quote, new generation X-ray observatory satellite, the Einstein probe, EP, to monitor flashes in the night sky and observe mysterious transient phenomena in the universe. The satellite will help reveal more about this violent and little-known side of the cosmos and help advance people's understanding of tumultuous cosmic events." End quote. On Monday this week, presumably as a carrot of sorts, Beijing released sweeping guidelines, quote, to support East China's Fujian province in exploring new paths for cross-strait integrated development, outlining a fury of specific measures to boost economic and trade cooperation between Fujian and Taiwan in a wide range of areas, from services, trade, and small businesses to high-tech industrial clusters. End quote. The official statement continued, quote, efforts will be made to attract Taiwan petrochemical, textile, machinery, cosmetics, and other industry projects to Fujian and help them explore international markets under the Regional Comprehensive Economic Cooperation, or RCEP, a regional trade agreement among 15 Asia-Pacific countries. End quote. Meanwhile, Taiwan presidential candidate frontrunner William Lai, speaking to international media yesterday, Tuesday, accused China of election interference, expressing, quote, China meddles every time Taiwan holds elections, but this time it is more serious than we have ever seen before. No matter if it is propaganda or military intimidation, cognitive warfare or fake news, they are employing it all. End quote. This week, American foreign policy analyst Ryan Hass, director of the John L. Thornton China Center and chair in Taiwan Studies at U.S. think tank Brookings, published a piece in the Taiwan-based Taipei Times called An American Perspective on Taiwan's Election. In the piece, Hass, who served in Obama's National Security Council, argues that the Biden administration, quote, has decided on a posture of disciplined neutrality in the election. Washington will be prepared to work closely with whomever Taiwan's people elect, end quote. He continues, quote, Washington's interest is not in being an exciting participant or critical variable in Taiwan's election outcome. It is in standing back, pushing back on any outside interference by others, giving the people of Taiwan space to decide, and then carrying forward the relationship with whoever they elect. End quote. The election is this Saturday, and we will be watching its outcome closely. I hope you're enjoying today's episode. If you're getting some value from this episode, I only have one ask. That is to like and subscribe. This is the primary way in which this channel grows. The main way it is shown to new people is if the algorithm is happy. It's also worth noting that many have told me that they have been unsubscribed from the channel, so if you believe you should be subscribed, 45% of regular viewers are not subscribed, it may be worth checking this now. For anyone who wants to help keep the channel financially sustainable, which allows me to continue doing this every day, open and free for all, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. My commitment has been a channel open to all that is reliant primarily on subscriber support, and with your assistance, I know I can keep it that way. Thank you so much, everybody, for the ongoing support. This week, Beijing has held its third plenum of the 20th CCDI, Central Commission for Discipline Inspection, the country's highest anti-graft and corruption body. On Monday, to open the high-level event, General Secretary Xi Jinping gave a speech in which he made clear some of the areas of focus in 2024 for the discipline body, expressing, quote, efforts should be deepened to rectify corruption in areas such as finance, state-owned enterprises, energy, pharmaceuticals, and infrastructure projects, where power is concentrated, funds are abundant, and resources are rich, and to clean up hidden risks, end quote. According to state-run Xinhua, Xi, quote, pointed out the need to intensify the punishment of bribery. Serious investigations should be conducted into those who repeatedly entice officials into corruption and harm the community. Typical cases should be publicized to set an example and serve as a warning. Efforts should be increased to recover and correct the undue benefits obtained from bribery. End quote. We remember in Monday's episode, we covered a story about US intelligence assessments that the months-long military crackdown and purge we have seen has been driven by extreme levels of graft and corruption within the People's Liberation Army. The financial system is also in the spotlight. Quote, I do think that the corruption crackdown in the financial sector is leading to the takedown of one or more pretty significant politicians. Probably retired politicians, maybe some senior ones, but I would not at all be surprised to see someone else at the Politburo level or above go down. Again, could be retired as a result of what they find throughout the financial system corruption crackdown." End quote. The communique for this meeting was expected on Tuesday, but was not released. However, what has been released is a documentary series produced by the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection alongside state broadcaster CCTV, featuring stories of gross corruption. Chinese financial media outlet Caixin, reporting on the series, writes, quote, "A top provincial cop receiving 22 cardboard boxes full of cash, a fire official paid off in gold bars and booze, and a night of lavish drinking that led to the death of an official are all stories featured." End quote. The outlet continues, quote, "Beijing is increasingly tapping the docudrama format to buttress support for a wide-ranging corruption crackdown that has also included televised confessions by suspects and spawned multiple police procedurals." The first 3 episodes of the documentary, which aired Saturday through Monday, included stories of 3 former police chiefs of northeast China's Liaoning province who were found to have accepted more than 1.23 billion yuan, $171.8 million in bribes, as well as ex-officials from Fujian, Guizhou, Hunan, Jilin, and Qinghai provinces who were involved in high-profile corruption cases. The primetime series will profile 12 corruption cases over its 4 episodes, with the finale on Tuesday examining officials embroiled in the country's soccer corruption scandal, which has ensnared at least 14 high-level personnel related to the sport. End quote. One of the featured corrupt Chinese officials in this series was Li Zayong, who, quote, blindly borrowed, end quote, 150 billion yuan, $21 billion onto his city's debt books in one of the country's most over-leveraged provinces, Liupanshui City in Guizhou. Li built 23 tourism construction projects, including a ski resort with the longest cableway in Asia. According to the state-run documentary series, the total amount of debt accumulated during Li's time in office as party secretary for the city is roughly equivalent to the value of the city's gross domestic product in all of 2022. Just think about that. Almost 100% of the city's GDP was borrowed and spent on what state media itself calls vanity projects. Completely wasteful spending. Regular viewers will remember that Guizhou, one of the poorest provinces in the country, is also one of the most indebted. Indeed, as we have explored in previous videos, the province is in a state of de facto bankruptcy. Despite being much poorer in absolute and per capita terms and having a much smaller population, it has more highways than the country of Japan. It also has nearly half of the world's 100 tallest bridges. This corruption documentary is a powerful example of how this systemic debt accumulation can occur across the country. In the documentary, speaking to state-run CCTV in a jail cell, Li admits, quote, "I knew I would hold a different post in a few years anyway, and I would be gone. Whoever succeeded me would have to deal with the problem." End quote. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much everybody for watching. Have a good Wednesday, and I will see you all tomorrow.